From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NoCo, a daily slice of Northern Colorado news and happenings. It's Thursday, December 14th. I'm Erin O'Toole. During a cold snap last December, Pastor Eddy Hopkins responded to an urgent call from Larimer County leaders. They told him Denver was overwhelmed with migrants who had recently arrived in the city from the U.S. southern border. They asked if he could help. The pastor sprang into action, and Peak Community Church in Fort Collins became a shelter for 16 migrants over the holidays. Pastor Eddy described the experience as,
absolutely wonderful. They brought a great deal of joy to us.
Still, it was a big undertaking.
We were wanting to provide the best space that we could, and so we spent a lot of time trying to figure out food, trying to figure out personal needs, and how people could be safe and clothed and all that kind of stuff.
People from Latin American countries and other nations facing turmoil continue to arrive in Colorado. In Larimer County, leaders argue that logistics have prevented them from doing more when it comes to sheltering the influx of migrants. But Pastor Eddy is already starting to make plans for the people who do end up near his doorstep. I visited him at the church to learn more.
So it sounds like you really enjoyed having this small group of people here last year. How did you change your Christmas Eve service to make it more welcoming for the folks you sheltered?
Well, so we did our service, and we ended up doing it in Spanish and English so that they could be part of it. But what they were focused on was the party. And so they cooked this incredible meal, and then they had very specific requests about, they wanted certain kinds of tablecloths, and the lights on the tree had to be colored and blinking. They wanted we have a mantle downstairs. They wanted 2 candles, matching Santa hats, so that it was a big effort, and it was great.
And what is it about food at this time of year that just brings everyone together? I love it.
Well, it's essential. It's essential to family. It's essential to even, these people had traveled, probably through 10 countries on foot to get all the way here. And we noticed a significant change when they had control over the food. And when they were saying, okay, this is what's important to us, or when they were able to cook, it became a completely different situation, and it transformed what the experience was like.
Right. And are you still in touch with some of those people who were here last year?
Yeah, I am. They've become friends. So about half went to a different part of the country where they have family, where they have connections, where they could pursue their legal goals and other goals. But another half stayed in town, and some of them are part of our congregation. We've stayed in touch.
Just going back to last year, a few days after Christmas, Larimer County officials had said that they couldn't help more migrants because the governor had not declared a state of emergency statewide. They were having trouble finding more housing to place people in. What do you remember about that time?
I just remember it going very quickly. I know that there was only 2 churches that were able to shelter people, but I want to be really clear that lots of other churches probably would have, but it would happen so fast. I remember the agencies performing superhuman feats to take care of people and to help people get housing, and also the migrant community coming out for folks who had come. They were in our basement, which is where we sort of gathered. Everybody was down there, and we had loads of folks from the migrant community coming and offering advice, offering assistance, cooking, you name it. So I felt like the resources were there, but it happened really quickly, and we weren't always quite sure what was happening on the larger scale. Like we weren't really connected with, declaring a state of emergency and that kind of stuff. We didn't understand the implications of all of that. We just knew, here's a group of people that need to be helped. Let's figure that out.
What are you planning to do this year?
Well, so we're not a shelter provider, and churches are not as good as the shelter providers in Fort Collins, like Catholic Charities and Fort Collins Rescue Mission. And also there's a program, Family Housing Network, that helps families experiencing homelessness. Those nonprofits have said to us that they're struggling with providing shelter for families that are coming into our community. And so we've offered to help with that extra burden. And so one of the things we're doing is we're trying to figure out how to replicate what we did last year, just with a lot more partnership, essentially providing shelter for newcomer families experiencing homelessness.
So our colleague Lucas Brady Woods has been speaking with migrants about what life is like for them right now in Colorado. He talked to a single mom from Venezuela, Yarly Josefina.
Nosotros ahorita no estamos trabajando. Yo soy madre soltera, tengo mis 2 niños aquí y pues bueno, ni comprarle ropa porque no tengo trabajo.
And she says she's sad. Christmas is coming and she can't find work. She's a single mom and she can't buy her son anything for the holiday. I'm wondering, how have you seen people celebrate the holidays without the basic resources?
Well, some people simply don't celebrate. They don't have the resources. They're so focused on survival that celebration isn't much of an option. Agencies are providing that, nonprofit organizations. And so I know that Fort Collins Rescue Mission, Catholic Charities, Family Housing Network, they're trying to support some of these families.
Yeah. How do you see the role of the church in this and understanding that this is an ongoing issue? What do you believe the role of the church should be?
Well, we're not trying to do what the agencies are doing. They're doing it really well. And they have an expertise that we'll never have, especially our shelters in town. But I think the role of the churches has to do, well, it's what the immigrant community has said to me, which is when they came here last December, what they saw was immense love. They saw a group of people who were willing to care for strangers, people they didn't know, people they had very little in common with on a superficial level. And that seems to be essential to people being able to go from one place to another. And so I think that's our main role. We're not going to try to work through the legal system and that kind of thing. We can support people, but primarily we're making a kind of home before they finally make a home.
I know the holidays are a time when a lot of us search for deeper meaning. What does it mean to you to be able to support these people, these families?
It's the mystery of Christmas, that when God comes, he doesn't come as a pastor. He doesn't come as the president. He didn't come as the Caesar. God comes as somebody, first of all, who needed to be welcomed. He needed to be welcomed by Mary. He needed to be welcomed by others. And in him embracing weakness and not being afraid of weakness, he then is able to welcome all. And he's welcomed me. And so I feel that in this immense and great opportunity I have to be able to welcome people who are strangers, I experience more deeply what that means, that God has welcomed me.
Well, Pastor Eddy Hopkins, thank you so much. I really appreciate you talking with me.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking the questions.
That's it for us today here on In the NoCo. We'll be back tomorrow with more of what's happening in Northern Colorado. Our interim producer is Mickey Capper. Robin Vincent is our executive producer. I'm your host, Erin O'Toole. We'll see you next time.